Hello, this is Anna Laura Brown, host of the Autoimmune Rehab Podcast, where we talk about how to actually thrive and heal your autoimmune condition rather than just covering it up with pills or changing your diet and hoping you'll feel better one day. We feature solo episodes on helpful topics and interviews with guests who have actually walked in your shoes with autoimmune disorders and/or who have years of experience in helping people to thrive and not just survive with autoimmune challenges. I'm a health coach who started this podcast because I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's in 2018 and wanted to inspire hope and transform health for people with autoimmune challenges. So keep listening and let's get you the help and hope you really need. This is the Autoimmune Rehab Podcast. Okay, and today, everybody, I am happy to welcome to the podcast Elizabeth Carrington. And Elizabeth has her own autoimmune and healing story. In addition to that, she is also a health coach. But unlike some of the other health coaches that we have had on here, she has a pretty not only unique story, but she's also got some pretty unique modalities and a unique way that she works with clients that she's going to share with us. So why don't you tell us, to start off with, Elizabeth, who are you a little bit and what brings you on to Autoimmune Rehab Podcast?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Anna Laura. Yes, I'm a veteran coach, I would say. I've been coaching for almost 30 years, master certified by the International Coach Federation. And I also am trained in a variety of other modalities, of which I will mention some of them, I'm sure, as we speak. But what I want to say in general, just as a short who I am, is that I work typically with women who are peri or menopausal, who are going through some kind of challenging health condition that they've been dealing with a long time and are kind of at their wits' end. And a lot of these are autoimmune conditions, not all of them, some are other, but complicated, complex conditions that they're really desperate to get to the bottom of so that they can heal. And I've been doing this work for a very long time, so I've seen a lot of different complex conditions, including my own, which was the genesis of doing this work, which I can certainly reference, which for me was chronic Lyme disease.
Yeah, okay, absolutely. Yeah, so let's get into that a little more too. We've covered Lyme on, it's come up several times actually on this podcast, because what a lot of people don't realize is that Lyme can actually be a big trigger for autoimmune issues. And so I would say, to begin with, if you're listening to this and you have autoimmune issues that you can't get to the bottom of, and you feel like you've tried a lot of things and aren't going into remission, then you definitely need to make absolutely certain that you don't have Lyme as one of the underlying reasons that you may have your autoimmune, because you may be really surprised. And even if you don't remember getting that tick bite or having that rash or that kind of thing, you can still have it. Now, a lot of the guests I've talked to do remember getting it, but that doesn't mean that you don't have Lyme if you don't have that. And Lyme is definitely something that it should at least be checked off your list, so to speak, as to, is that the cause of some of your issues. So tell us a little bit, how did you find out that you had Lyme, and then what else did that lead to for you when it came to your health initially?
Yeah, you're so right. I just want to totally highlight and double click on what you said. I never had a tick bite. I never had a rash. I never had any reason to think I had Lyme disease. And then I birthed a child who had no rash or no tick bite and he had chronic complicated Lyme disease and was, conceived in that. My former partner had Lyme, and I both, when we conceived him, and I had no idea. And I believe that it's pretty common for mothers to have the birth, which I did, which is a traumatic event to the body, right? And that catalyzes a more intense episode of Lyme. I've talked to a lot of people over the years that can relate with this. So it was like, I guess I was holding my Lyme at bay, and then I, had the baby, and then I was really leveled by it. It manifested differently in my partner's. He had frozen shoulder and all kinds of joint pain and complications. I had complex migraines since I was 14 years old, and they got so much worse. And also I had a little joint stuff too, but foggy thinking and a lot of the common things. But they manifested differently in both of us as adults. And my son, who was born with it, had this chronic constipation was his main thing. The doctors wanted to operate on him because he had, 10 days under his belt of no release. And that was a very, big moment of saying, what are we doing here? How are we going to treat this? This cannot be, And I will say that it's through this kinesiology, which is kind of my magic, tool or superpower, if you will. I was a surrogate for testing his body because of course he's pre-verbal. He can't say my shoulders hurt, whatever's going on in my body, right? So I was standing in for his higher self and being muscle tested to find out what he needed for treatment. Bottom line is the three of us totally healed completely. The doctors said that I'd be on antibiotics the rest of my life, that he was, not going to get well, chronic, all the conditions are gone and healed and there's no reoccurrence. So what we did through the muscle testing, and it was a different treatment for each of us, which is, so for those of you that don't know muscle testing, let me just say, your body knows the truth of what you need. And if you can connect with your body will tell you if you need one vitamin C or another vitamin C. Your body can absorb one form of vitamin C and my body could need another, and my body knows what I need and your body knows what you need. And for me, when it comes to chronic and complex conditions, Lyme included in them, knowing how to access your body's wisdom and truth is the most important thing to healing from these conditions, because we read about other people's stories and how they healed and we're all like, oh my God, I'm going to try that. I'm going to try that cleanse. I'm going to try that chelation therapy. I'm going to try that, you name it. There's 1,000 things when it comes to complex conditions, right? But until you know what your body wants to do in the order it wants to do it, and how much of that vitamin C your body needs to not put your system in overwhelm, or how much magnesium is right for you, or every single thing can be dialed in with asking your body. And that's really the unique approach I've developed to getting to the heart. You get to the heart of the problem, what are the issues, and then exactly what your body needs. And very few people know how to do that in a very artful way. You can do it by, people do muscle testing. They say they hold their fingers together or they reach out their arm and somebody presses on it. But to ask the right questions of your body at the time that it's dealing with a certain condition, that's an art, So I would say that's my secret sauce, underneath all the facilitated modalities that I use to help people heal and release old patterns and old trauma.
Oh, absolutely. It definitely is a secret sauce. And when you really think about it, I think all of us innately have some of that capability. That's why, so many women that have autoimmune conditions, it's like they start suspecting something's going wrong and they go to the doctor for these tests because they think they have a thyroid problem or they have some kind of autoimmune thing going on. The doctor just dismisses it like, no, whatever, you can't, it's all in your head or whatever. But the
Right.
whole reason that we think we have a problem is not just based on symptoms, it's based on the fact that we know what's going on in our body. We start tuning into that.
Right.
And, I definitely do muscle testing on myself. I may be probably not as good at it as you or some other professionals, but I've definitely over the years figured out how to use it and figured out that it definitely is really a useful tool. And, for those of you that may be overwhelmed by it, I mean, the real simple way to at least get started without a professional anyway is to start, maybe just even holding on to certain supplements, certain foods, even certain things, and just kind of ask yourself, is this good for me? And then, just kind of try to listen to what kind of response you get. And even that at the very basic level can help. And a question I'd ask you is, so you started this, you must have already known about kinesiology then and already been into it when your son was born, or did you not really have that expertise yet and you just kind of stumbled across it? How did you know that that was going to be the thing that was going to help you figure out what to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think of that as a little bit of grace, a dollop of grace. I was sick in bed with a new baby, having these chronic migraines, feeling like absolute terrible, awful, and somebody suggested that I might have Lyme. And I was like, are you kidding me? So instead of doing the standard test, which has a lot of false positives, I wanted to really determine for real. So I spent at the time it was like $750 to go to the Igenics lab in Palo Alto, which at the time was the most reliable way of determining if you had Lyme. And I came back that I was 7 years chronic, and I was just about at the point where I was going to drop off, that I wouldn't show it anymore. It would literally go underground in my system, and I would have all these complicating conditions that they could never point to, So I got the test back from the doctor, and then I was like, now what? How do I treat this? And the first doctor I went to was kind of a naturopathic, I was living in California at the time, so alternate holistic healing is the way. And it's the way I prefer anyway, if I can, but in California, it's certainly the way. So it was a naturopathic physician who basically said, a naturopathic physician said, you're going to be on antibiotics the rest of your life. Like, you have chronic Lyme. We barely caught it. So let's just start you on that right now. And I was like, my digestive system is so delicate. I've worked on it, balancing it my whole life. I finally am at a good place. You're not going to take me down with antibiotics for 6 months to the rest of my life. He said, we'll start with 6 months. And I just kind of panicked. And I had this baby, I was breastfeeding, and so I went online and I just Googled, help with holistic healing from Lyme. And I ended up going to this woman who was a bang up, artful muscle testing genius. And to which she said, yes, you're muscle testing for Lyme, but that's not the highest priority in your system right now. There's some other things you need to deal with. She said, but here's what I know. Through you and your body's wisdom and my ability to access it, you will heal yourself. And you will also heal, in collaboration with your son, because we will help him too. It'll be a very gentle protocol, unlike yours. It'll be a little more significant because you've had it a lot longer, but we will do this work together. And as soon as I heard those words, your body wisdom will know, and I will heal myself, I was like, I hadn't used this before, and I just knew it was right. And that was the moment of grace where I said, yes, I will work with you. And she was the reason why this custom protocol of healing for all three of us emerged, and we all got better. And I will never, ever, that day forward, that was, 20 something years ago, I have used muscle testing to choose everything from a bottle of wine for dinner that to my own practice of healing all the complex issues that have happened in my family and in my friend circle and with my colleagues, as a guidepost for how to heal, and do it the first time, not just poke around in the dark with a bunch of things that you think you heard that somebody else said that would work for you. You know how your friends are trying to be helpful.
Yeah.
Oh, try magnesium for sleep. It'll be great. That calm will work great. And then it doesn't work for you. And you think, what's wrong with me? And then you try the next friend, no, that's not what you need. You need X milligrams of this, melatonin, whatever it is, and that will work for you. And then you conk out and you're like, I finally had a good night's sleep. Well, that's because you gave your body what it needed. So to me, that kinesiology is the way to go to heal anything or address any imbalance.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense, because you think about it, we are all unique. We all have unique body chemistry. What works for one is not going to work for the other, and that's why, somebody who's been into essential oils for a long time, I know that, I may have certain ones I'm really drawn to that work amazing for me, but the effect that somebody else gets when they use them may be totally opposite, and that's just
right.
an example of, it's not, they all different things, whether it's oil supplements, those things can all be beneficial to everybody, but not necessarily the same ones and not necessarily in the same way. And that's also one of the challenges that I think, you run into some of these health coaches that think that everybody should be vegan or everybody should be on this one kind of diet or whatever. And that's a whole nother issue too, because it's like, we're all created to be unique, and the same diet is not going to work for every single person. That's just how it goes,
That's right. So
So
right.
why don't you share with us a little bit maybe about, I'm sure, like you said, over the years, you've had a ton of stories of things, but maybe something ideally autoimmune related, something that, a story that comes to mind that you feel like is really unique or really amazing.
Yeah. Do you categorize cancer as an autoimmune?
I don't usually,
You don't.
but I
Okay.
know that a lot of times people who have autoimmune can be more susceptible to getting cancer typically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess just to say, because the story that popped to mind was a woman healing from lung cancer. Is that it's an effect of your, that we all have cancer cells in our body all the time, and they get out of balance, and our immune system is not modulating the cancer cells in the way
Mhm.
that it should, right, to keep those in balance and at bay. And they somehow get out of control in that sense. So from that perspective, because you could consider that also in immune conditions the same, right? The immune
Yeah.
system is out of balance, it's overactive or underactive, right? So the woman I thought of, I just finished with her, and she had been diagnosed with lung cancer at about 50. She's about my age. So a few years ago. And when she came to me, she was still in the final, treatment and final run up to her, all of the medical interventions, the chemo, et cetera, that she had done. And what she wanted to use me for was, because she had chosen her path, she had done, the medical treatment, and that was great and fine. But what she wanted to do with me is, I want to understand what caused the situation in my body, right? Such that I can prevent it from happening again. And this is true for any condition, anything. You
Oh,
want
yeah.
to understand the cause. So it almost is irrelevant that it was cancer, because it's just her body got out of balance, and it created a wake-up call and a life-threatening illness, really. So what it came down to, and this is what is true for most people with autoimmune conditions of all stripes and sorts, is that there's some emotional slash and or mental component to it. And for her, it went back to her early childhood, where she was excluded from the girly social network, of that, how girls can be vicious and very judgmental and keep you out. And anyway, it was a whole social dynamic that was one of the core. So she had like 7 core things. This was an emotional thing. And she also had some beliefs about her health. I'll never be well. There'll always be a problem with my health, because as a young girl, she was sick a lot, and she got that message, not necessarily overtly from her parents, but there's a way that energetically we're impacted when somebody starts to see us as the sick kid, or the one who is never going to be normal, right? That affects us. And all of us, if I believe we're all very sensitive energetically. I mean, we put up our barriers, and we put up our, compartmentalized things. We survive and we adapt over the years. But when we're open as children, we're just looking at these people that are our parents, and we're like, oh, whatever they think must be true. And we just absorb their kind of projection of us. And one of the projections of her parents was that she was never going to be the strong, she was the sickly kid, right? So anyway, we looked at those in I call it the attunement mapping session. So we're getting to the source of the issue in the initial session, right? There's no healing, there's no change that happens in that session. You're just identifying the root causes. And then we also identify what's going to help you clear or rebalance or release. And the funny thing was, there was nothing physical. It was all emotional and mental relief processes. And so this talks to another piece of my training over the years, which is a grouping of healing modalities called accelerated evolution. It's a name of an organization that teaches healing technology, healing processes and practices. So we had to do some intense experience releases, which were early traumas, right, from the social circle. We had to do some belief shifting around, I'm not just the sickly kid, I can be strong and healthy. So we had to like reboot her beliefs about herself and herself in community, in social interactions, in friend circles. And it was interesting because that had shown up in her later life as always feeling awkward and always feeling like she was the one left out. The whole template from her early life copied and pasted to her later life, where she had throughout her life been the one that was the sick one. All of her, her dorm mates were sick, or what was it? Her quad, the group of people in the rooms you live in, they were all fine, and she was the one that always got sick, and they knew her as the one that was getting, you know what I mean? Like, it's so bizarre how early life copy paste over into your later life, you know.
Well, she
Anyway,
basically just manifested that to continue through her mindset and through other
yeah,
things. And they say that 80% of autoimmune conditions happen in women. And I think that, and I know actually, even from a lot of the women that I've talked to, that a lot of the reasons we get them more than men is because we lack the self-esteem and the self-worth that a lot of men have. And we
yeah.
also prioritize everyone else rather than ourselves. And as a result, that can manifest itself in autoimmune.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So a lot of that work is foundational healing work. I end up doing sending a lot of people to recovery work of adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional families, not because they necessarily even have a parent who's an alcoholic or a family member, they might. It's the dysfunctional family part that sets in a lifetime of believing somehow I'm less than, somehow I need to prove myself, somehow I don't get to have the best piece of pie or whatever, you know, like metaphorically, that I'll take the lesser paying job. I'll just expect that that's what's going to happen. And that program, I'm just mentioning it because it's come up so much recently. I mean, I think there's an argument for we all come from dysfunctional families on a continuum of none of us got exactly what we needed in childhood, perfectly attuned parents that mirrored us and recognized our value and worth. And, you know, so we all have some level of dysfunction, but this program in specific, and it's like free, it's like very powerful healing work, helps you understand the system that reinforce your feeling of low self-esteem, low value, low worth. And that in conjunction with other things that people are using, I never know what's going to come up in a session, but I can say with immune conditions and people that are stuck, feeling stuck in life, you know, as a theme or pattern, like, or dissatisfied with their work or with their life in general, with their partnership, sometimes there's often this underlying pattern of, if you work with the early life material, you know, the early life dysfunction, you will find the understanding and the compassion to shift your beliefs about yourself. And that in conjunction with some of these tools that I use to help accelerate that movement energetically are really, really, really powerful. You know, they have a powerful impact on the quality of your life, because isn't the quality of your life determined by the quality of your relating, i.e. your relationship with yourself, you know? So there's
Oh,
a lot
absolutely, it
going on.
is. So this brings up another question then. I'm assuming you probably work with another network of people for this, but assuming things come up like, say, people do need to do things like diet changes, take certain supplements, use certain oils, herbs, all the other, even medicine maybe potentially, all the other things. Do you have a network of other people that you refer them to when they need those things, or do you also do that too?
I do some, you know, I do a subset of that, but there are all the things that you said and more. Somatic experiencing, inner family systems work, you know, there are a gazillion past life regression, rebirthing, who knows? Like, it's always about the person's higher self and in asking the right questions to generate the right modality. Because sometimes people are like, oh yeah, they can do EFT tapping, right? And they can shift their whole relationship with whatever rage outbursts or anger, issues. They just use tapping. I have a client yesterday that said, I going through a very difficult divorce, not sleeping. Her modality is EFT. She wakes up in the middle of the night. She does 2 rounds. She's back to sleep. She's like, I could never have believed that this stupid tapping, she was totally in resistance to it, but her higher self said, use EFT with her. So I was like, honey, just do it with me one time. I just want to teach it for you. So if you're stuck, you could at least try it. She's like, I tried it under duress and I was back to sleep in less than a minute. She's like, I cannot believe it. She's like, I was the biggest skeptic of this and doubting Thomas. And it's only because I've worked with you for 20 years that I even trusted you enough to try it, and it worked. So that is so powerful, that one modality, but not for somebody else. They could tap all day long and have no results. Why is that? I don't know. It's like what you said before about you have a different chemistry, a different metabolism, a different diet. So yes, if the person needs a nutritionist, absolutely, referral. I have a huge referral network, but oftentimes in the session, we can actually say, you need this many milligrams of vitamin B6, you need this many milligrams of this, you need this, because if you can ask the question, your body will answer. It's just really that simple. I don't know how your body knows about the difference between THC and CBD when you ask it. Like, I don't know how that happens. This is the mystery part. But what I can tell you is, at the end of almost every session, the person says, I can't believe it. Some of those things I thought of before and thought were true, but I wasn't sure. And getting the validation to know that that really is coming from my higher self. I'm committed now, and some of it is like from my childhood. I don't believe it, but I know from my friend who referred me that this works. So I'm going to give it a shot, so it doesn't always 100% resonate. Sometimes there's unconscious material that shows up where the person feels like, I had somebody yesterday, the emotion was rejection. She's like, I don't feel that sense of rejection from my kids and parenting and this and that. And we were fishing around, saying, well, let's talk about it from another angle. And at the end I said, wait a minute, I got to check to see if this is unconscious. And I checked and it was like, oh, it's an unconscious thing going on with you, that you feel rejected by your kids when they don't do what you say now that they're teenagers. And that's having an effect on your sleep, because she wasn't sleeping for the first time in her life. Now, melatonin wasn't going to do it. Magnesium wasn't going to, all the things you could Google weren't doing it, because if they were, she would have been sleeping already. We have to do a clearing on this rejection, this unconscious rejection, to clear it out of her system so she can get back. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Every single session is such a, what? Where did that come from? But it comes from you, the person. Yeah. It doesn't come from my idea, that's why it's so unique and kind of edgy for people, because they're like, how do you know what I think? And I don't know, call that a dollop of grace too. Like, your higher self has a perspective on what you need. Most people don't teach us about this in school or life.
No, they absolutely don't teach you about it. And I think, honestly, I think part of the reason that it works so well is if you think about it, and a lot of people aren't aware of this, but everything has energy, whether that be good or bad. I mean, scary, movies have a certain kind of energy. Comedy movies have a different kind of energy. Essential oils have a kind of energy. Plants have a kind of energy. Bread, vegetables, water, air, all these things have energy. And so once you're tapping into your body's energy, you're getting a sense of the frequencies and energy that your body has, and what things out there are a match for that energy and what things are not a match for that energy. And so I think that's part of the reason that it works so well.
Yeah, I agree. I wanted to make one other comment, because I like how you were making muscle testing accessible for people. I've taught some classes on different forms of kinesiology, if you will. And the idea of holding something in front of you, I just wanted to add to that. One way is for the intuitive person to hold it in your hand and energetically feel, is this substance, right, a benefit to me? And if you're really good, and how much, right? But another way, and I did this once at a holiday where I have two, my brother and sister-in-law are engineers and supreme skeptics of this. Woo-woo is what they call it.
Yeah,
so I blindfolded my brother, and in his own kitchen, and he has a very severe gluten allergy. So I stood him up, blindfolded him, and I brought an orange in front of him, so he couldn't even see anything. And I brought it in front of his field, like close, within a few inches of his chest, and his body just started to go toward it, right? And then I brought something else, and his body just kept, And then I grabbed the loaf of bread, and put it in front of him. His body, like, he almost lost his balance and fell over. It was such a strong reaction. That is called body kinesiology. And it is a powerful, that's how I do it while I'm having dinner and we're having a steak and I want to have a nice bottle of red wine. I go to the wine store. It's like, my body's like, nope, not that one. And maybe neutral for one, where it's like, it's okay. It's not great. And then there'll be one, it's like, oh, that's the one that I'm resonating with right now. That'll be great for the dinner tonight. So that is accessible to everyone. What we do obviously is more sophisticated, but that is a level of empowering yourself that is really great. And I would say that I still, I still have somebody help me muscle test when it comes to dicey things in my own, like, because I don't have the perspective as powerfully as I do objectively. It's just, I think it's like trying to coach yourself. It's okay. And sometimes you can ask a powerful question and get a new insight. But when somebody's holding space for you and asking you and holding the whole conversation, it's a different level of intervention, right? So what I want to say is we can all use muscle testing, and there's more sophisticated ways that you can apply it to your health and well-being that'll get you much faster, along the healing journey than if you're messing around with a thing here and a thing there and trying to figure it out. But
Oh,
both are,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, so why don't we end with a couple things? So verbally tell it to us, and then of course we'll include the link in the show notes of where the best place is for people to find you and connect with you if they want to learn more, potentially hire you, that kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah. Just my website, Elizabeth-Carrington, Carrington.com. And there's a little free gift there that will give you an experience of checking in. There's 3 major intelligence centers in the body. There's the gut wisdom, the heart wisdom, and the mind wisdom. And so I walk you through a little meditation to start connecting with that wisdom to give you any insight or awareness around what's currently happening in your life. And there's my story about healing my migraines over 39 years on that page. And, so there's some interesting stuff about me there if you're curious a little bit more. And if, of course, you want to book a session, I'm always available for that. I love working with new people and helping people solve more tricky conditions, because I know the feeling of being desperate and 39 years of migraines leveling my life. I know the feeling of I just want to be well. I want to be a normal person, for Pete's sake. Can I just get through a week without being in bed, blindfolded, because I can't handle the light and I can't handle the noise and I can't handle life, I mean, yeah, so I have a lot of compassion for people that have struggled in that way, and I really want to help them make a very efficient healing recovery. And it doesn't happen overnight. It took me months to heal these migraines, right? I don't want to represent this as like some quick and magic solution.
Sure.
If you're really committed and you really want to heal, your body will tell us how, and that will be written down for you, and you will have a map on how to do that and what's caused the problem. That I can guarantee you. Whether or not you take the steps and do the work, that's up to you. And I do the best I can to support you with the right referral, or, offering myself to do it if I can, whatever. But you have to commit to the journey of healing, right? And that's the part that'll get you to where you want to be. You know this, Anna Laura, I'm just saying
Absolutely.
it.
I do, but I think not everybody realizes that. So yeah, that's absolutely good. So before we get going, I want to ask you the last final question that I usually like to ask everybody is if you could go back in time to, let's say, your son's birth or right before your son was born, what is one thing that you know now that you wish you could tell yourself at that time?
One thing I know now that I wish I could tell myself at that time. Well, given my journey, I would say to myself in no uncertain terms, you can trust that you will attract the right people to help you recover, heal, whatever you need as a result of this major journey of becoming a mother with a chronically ill baby in a chronically ill condition, and you can trust that you will find and attract the right people to help you heal, so that you don't have to spend so much time anxious about, is it going to be okay? Am I going to, have I given my kid this toxic, illness? Oh my God, and blaming. But it's the trust and faith in knowing that you will access the right people that I would have given myself a banner,
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
So let's just end on that then. So everybody out there, just trust and know that you can attract the right people and that your body knows how to heal and you can figure it out. And if you need help from Elizabeth, please feel free to reach out and let her know. And you can get started on your own, and then, eventually you're going to need professional help. So don't hesitate to reach out, and hopefully you found this episode helpful. And if you did, we'd appreciate it if you would write a review or rate it and share it with anybody else that you feel like is out there that can really benefit. Share the love, so to speak. Don't just keep it all into yourself. This has been the Autoimmune Rehab Podcast.